Benvenuto! Welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to go back to one of my childhood favorites. It is called beef and peas. Now this is something my Italian grandmother would make often. So there is an actual Italian name to it, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head. We'll put it down in the description. But even though it looks like we have a lot of ingredients out here, it is actually a really simple and delicious dish. So now, we're going to make my grandmother's version of this. My grandmother served it with usually mashed potatoes. She'd, put the mashed potatoes on the plate and then put the beef and beans over it. So this is kind of like Italian beef stew, for lack of a better word. But one of my all-time favorite YouTube channels, Bon Appetiti, I think is the name. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. Gina has a recipe that's very similar to my grandmother's, but she does it with dumplings. And I've never seen these dumplings before. They looked delicious. So we're going to use her dumpling recipe. And Wade will put a link to, the link of this recipe for you guys anyway. I can't imagine nobody isn't aware of her that kind of likes to cook and watches cooking channels. She's got, 2 million viewers. Come over here, two guys. But anyway, so let's go over the ingredients. So I've got about 2.5 pounds of, this is chuck stew meat. I'm not going to fuss with it all that much unless I come across a big, gigantic piece that's bigger than the others. I'm going to kind of just leave it like that. I don't think there's a need to really cut it up anymore because you want some big chunks and some small chunks. I've got about, I think I have maybe 5.5 cups of frozen peas. Okay, and this is a stew, so of course we're going to need some liquid. Now you're going to need probably about 6 cups of liquid, and we'll go over this again a little bit more when we put it in the pan. That it's going to depend upon how many cups of liquid you have, how wide your pan is, and so on and so forth, because we want the meat covered as we stew it. All right, so I've got some of my homemade beef stock here. You can use your own beef stock. You can use store-bought beef stock. Or water. I'm going to use a little bit of red wine, about a cup. You don't have to use the red wine. Of course, the wine will give it that little bit richer, the layer of flavors. If you don't want to use wine, just increase your stock or liquid. All right. Need whatever your favorite Italian spice is. All right. We're going to need some salt and pepper. We're going to need a little bit of tomato paste. And we're going to need some olive oil to get everything fried up nicely. And the last thing we're going to need for the beef and peas is we need a couple carrots, couple sticks of celery, and a small white onion or half of a large one. We don't have to worry about being particular about chopping this up because we're going to put this all in the little food processor. So what we're making in what this is, oh God, of course I have the name right on the top of my tongue, but I can't think of it. Most Italian stews or sauces start out with this trinity of carrots, celery, and onions. Soffritto. I think it's called a soffritto. Again, I'll have to look that up. And that's generally the carrots, onions, and celery very finely chopped, and then it's fried for a little bit in a pan to get everything, to start the cooking process. Now, I almost kind of, not liquefy it, but I let it, blend quite a bit. If you don't have a little food processor, or you want to use your big food processor, or you can even use a blender. All right. But for now, we're going to put those aside because we're going to go over what's in and I'm also going to use a little cornstarch. We'll see how thick our gravy is, and if I want to thicken it, and we're going to dust our meat with a little bit of flour. So for the dumplings, we're going to need 6 extra large eggs. We need some Pecorino Romano Cheese, some breadcrumbs. I'm using flavored breadcrumbs because that's all I had. I don't have any of my own breadcrumbs I made up. Of course, we have a really great recipe for making your own seasoned breadcrumbs. And we're going to need about a half a cup of Italian parsley, just loosely. You can chop it or You can just break it into little pieces. That's what I do. All right. So, I think that's the ingredients. So let me get some of this cleaned up, and we're going to start with our Soffritto, and then we'll quickly go on to our the beef and peas. Like I said, it looks like there's a lot of ingredients, but this is actually quite a quick recipe. A little bit of, for a couple hours stewing on top of the stove with the meat. Then you put it in the oven, and we're going to get our dumplings nice and brown. So we'll see you after I clean up all this mess. Okay, so we're going to make our Soffritto first, and since I seem to be using that word a lot, I hope it is the right word. If not, anyway, we're gonna get our carrots, our celery, and our onions chopped up. So, like I said, this isn't actually going to go in until we get all the meat browned and stuff. But this is one of the circumstances you don't, do this and then brown the meat or brown them together. I don't know why. That's just the way my grandmother did it. So I'm going to give these ones a little bit of a chop first. And like I said, that can, see how well chopped that is. So if you can get them to chop up that much, that'd be great. Or if you chop them by hand, we'll throw our onions in there. Those will add a little liquid, so hopefully it'll help with the chopping. Like I said, I'm even fine if that is a, it's going to look wet. Don't worry about it. That's how you want it. Give it a couple more spins. All right. So there you got your onions, carrots, and celery. All right, so we're going to get our pan going on medium high. Take the blade out. Don't need that anymore. If you haven't bought yourself a little immersion blender like that, I know I've said many times, they're not expensive. I would definitely plan on putting a little bit of money away one of these days to buy it for yourself. Just letting the pan warm up. And as soon as we get our Soffritto started in the cooking process, we're just going to set that aside, and then we're going to quickly go on to the rest of the recipe. It's warm, so I'm on medium. And a little bit of olive oil, just enough, I'd say a tablespoon or so to coat the pan. All right, let that get warm. I just need to get a spatula. All right, and get that in there. Yeah, and there we go. We got a nice little sizzle. So with this, it doesn't have to cook long, really just a few minutes. Just get it in. This is a non-stick pan. I'm going to turn it up a little bit to maybe about medium high. And you can't hear it probably, but there's just a little bit of a sizzle. And you just want to, this is something you should stay around because it can burn quickly. I can already smell it. Give it a little pinch or two of salt, as well as some fresh grated pepper. So basically what we're going to do is we're just sauteing this for about 5 minutes. All right, we'll be back. Okay, so we've been sauteing our onions, celery, and carrots for about 5 minutes on medium. And really what you want is we're just looking for it to get dry. We've sauteed out all the moisture, and that is where we want it. And then you can just set that aside. All right, we'll go on to this next step, and then we'll come back once I get everything in the pan. But so I've got my just about 2.5 pounds of chuck stew meat here. Give it a little sprinkle with some flour. This will help us get a little color while we brown it. Plus, it will help thicken up our gravy. Get back in there. And just try to get... So like I said, I didn't really do much with this. Oop, we got a little one that fell over there. And we'll put a little bit in. A little bit more. So that's all there is to it. Guys, just trying to get it all coated. Of course, I did pat this dry before I put the meat in the bowl. All right, that's about done. All right, we'll be back in a minute and we'll start to get this all nice and sauteed. All right, I got my Dutch oven all nice and warmed up. It's on medium right now. I'm gonna, again, coat the bottom of your pan with a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil, and we're going to brown this. Now, we've done this many times before. It's probably too much to do in one batch. So we'll probably do 2 batches. All right, so we're just gonna let this get nice and browned. It's probably gonna take about 5-10 minutes. Again, you don't want to go and start gardening because you want to keep your eye on this. So that's all there is to it. So we'll get this all browned up nice. When this is done, I'll come back, show it to you, and then we'll start the next batch, and then we'll get our recipe together. All right, guys, so those are nice brown. There's some nice brown on the bottom of the pan, so I'm going to remove these so we can get our other batch in. All right, I'm going to deglaze this just a little bit. I had turned it off. Just a little bit of splash of red wine, or you can use water or stock. Just scrape up some of those little bits. Of course, I don't have the right utensil. I should have a spatula. Sorry about that. I don't know where my other spatula is. All right. A little bit more olive oil in, just a tad bit more. And we'll get the rest of our meat in there. And we're going to do the same thing. All right, when I'm all done with the meat, we'll go on to the next step. Okay, our second batch of meat is all browned up. And we're gonna add our cup of wine. And we can increase the heat a bit. And we're going to deglaze the bottom of the pan. So we wanna just kind of scrape. I found my metal spatula. And I'm just going to let that come to a boil, and the alcohol will burn off, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, so our beef is and the wine has come to a boil. I'm going to add my beef stock or water. So that's I've used just about 5 cups of liquid, maybe 5.5. All right, so you can see, as Wade said, it doesn't look that appetizing right now. Yes, that color, but it's going to be delicious. All right, so you can see that's just about covering all of our meat. It's just kind of floating in there. That's enough. One thing I wanted to mention, so far we haven't added any salt. Now, I don't know if this is a scientific thing, but whenever my grandmother did, like a stew like this or something that she braised, she didn't put the salt in until the end of the cooking. And she insisted that it would take the meat longer to cook and it wouldn't get as tender. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, we're gonna do it like she did. All right, so we're gonna bring this back to a boil. That's very important, guys. You wanna bring this to a boil. And we've all heard the saying, a watched pot never boils, so we'll be back. All right, you see we're at a nice rolling boil. That's what we want, guys. All right, so we are then going to turn this down. Now we do want to keep it at a pretty, it's more than a simmer, but not a boil. All right, so we're going to turn this down to medium now. And I will take a look in a few minutes and see where the bubbles are, and we'll determine if that's the right boiling point we want. In the meantime, we're gonna just leave you for one more second, and then we'll come back and we're gonna make Gina's dumpling recipe. Then we'll just cover it, put it aside. No, is that her name? Gina. I think it's Gina. Anyway, we're going to make the dumpling recipe. Then we'll cover it up, put it aside. It'll be all ready, because really after this is done, and this is going to it's going to stew for about 2 hours. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, or to the point that how tender you want your beef. I like it on the tender side, but we want it to have a little bit of mouthfeel to it so that it doesn't totally fall apart. And that usually takes about 2 hours. All right, we will be back with the rest of the stuff we need for our dumplings. All right, so we're going to put together our dumpling mixture. So when we're ready to go, it's all done. So we got our 6 eggs in here. Got my eggs, my salt, and my pepper in there. And we got 1.5 cups of Romano cheese and 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. That mixed up. And throw our parsley in there. Again in there. And we'll get that nicely mixed together. And that didn't look quite as, or I should say, it doesn't look quite as stiff as Gina's did, but I don't know if she let it sit or what. So we're gonna cut cover this with some saran wrap. And we'll see if we need to add a little bit more breadcrumbs. We'll do that, but I'm sure the eggs are going to absorb the breadcrumbs. So, like I said, it might be a little bit stiffer in a bit. And I guess I'll throw that in the refrigerator just because there is some eggs in there. All right, so that is our dumpling batter all done. So that's just about where we want our beef to be stewing at. It's not bubbling furiously all over the surface, but it is indeed bubbling. All right, you can loosely cover that if you'd like, just so we don't have that much evaporation. So like I said, it's going to take about 2 hours. Now, you might want to check it, make sure you're not getting that much evaporation. If you need to add a little bit more water or stock, just keep the beef covered. All right, so I won't tell Google to put a timer on because I have this feeling, because one of the videos I heard, Wade said, sorry if anybody's Google's went on, so it's possible. It happens to us with the TV sometimes. All right, so I know I said this was an easy recipe. There wasn't a lot of steps. Seems like there is. It's definitely worth it. So after our stew beef gets to the tenderness we want, we're going to add our peas into there, and then we're going to transfer it to a baking dish, and we're going to put our dumplings on it, and then 45 minutes later it will be supper time. So see you in a bit, or a couple hours. Won't seem that long to you though. Oh, guys, I forgot to add our soffritto, or our onions, celery, and carrots. So we've been simmering for about 10-15 minutes, but we're good. Get that incorporated in there. And I don't think we need to add any additional stock right now, but I'll check it again in about 10 minutes. All right, see you later. Okay. We're about an hour and 20 minutes in, and my beef is right at the tenderness that I want it at. So I have had to add probably about a cup of stock over the hour and a half or so of cooking, just to kind of keep it, the water covering the beef. All right, so we're going to go on. Believe it or not, we're almost finished up. Now I'm going to taste it. Although we haven't really put any salt in. We did have a little bit, a pinch or so from the onions, celery, and carrots. So I'm assuming we're gonna have to add some. It's good, but yeah, it could lead it, use a little bit more salt. So I've got, my recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of salt, so I got 2 teaspoons of salt. I got a tablespoon of garlic, dried garlic seasoning, and a half a teaspoon, a little bit more than a half a teaspoon of pepper. So let's throw that in there. Now I'm going to put my beans in just before. I think I do want it a little bit thicker than that, although it's perfectly fine like this. I don't know. Let's see how many beans we get in there. Peas we get in there. And I'm going to turn my heat back up because I didn't really rinse the peas, or they've been out covered, but they are still a little bit cold. So I want to bring those. I want to make sure those get warmed all the way through. And, I'm going to go ahead and use all of them. And we'll turn our heat up a bit. Bring that back up to a boil. I think I might thicken it just a tad. Oh, we're gonna add one more thing. A couple tablespoons of tomato paste. Big heaping tablespoons. And let's check on our dumplings. It does look like it. Yep, it did thicken up a bit. So that looks about just what we want it for when we scoop it out. Let me... Oh, it smells good. If there wasn't raw egg in there, I'd taste it. And there's a lot of raw egg in there. So I'm just going to let that come back up to a boil before I decide whether I'm going to thicken it up a little bit. So in this, I've got a couple tablespoons of cornstarch. What, am I moving around too much?
Yeah, about a little bit.
Oh. Sorry, guys. Just the food is the important part. So I'm going to get this ready just in case I do want to thicken it up a bit. Crash! Put that over there. So we got a roughly, what is this? 4 quarts? 4 quart. I wish it was a little longer or wider, but a little less deep. I'm gonna find myself a pan like that. No. Oh, it smells delicious, guys. I've got my oven preheated to 375. You can stay there, because I'm gonna come over here and get another utensil. All right, we're up as high as we can go, so it's not gonna boil any quicker than that. Now I'm gonna use a little ice cream scoop, or not even ice cream scoop. I think that's a 2 tablespoon scoop. See how it goes with putting our dumplings in there. I don't know if I can show you. So I did, like I said, I used the chuck roast, or it was stew meat via chuck roast. So a little bit more fat content than regular stew meat, so it was you can see how nice and tender that is. That's delicious. So that's probably why it only took me about an hour and a half. Oh, that's good. We're just about coming to a boil. Oh, that's tasty. Now I can't wait to eat. All right, it's done. I don't know. It kind of it tastes to me a cross between beef stew and a pot roast. Of course, you don't have all the veggies. You could put some, cut up a couple of yellow gold or golden potatoes and throw it in there. But then to me, it just is kind of like a stew. Like I said, my grandmother used to serve it with, on mashed potatoes. We're going to do it with dumplings today. But, all right, I guess. I don't have anything else to say yet. So we'll take a quick break and wait till that comes to a complete minute or a complete boil. All right. I mean, this is perfect as it is. You could actually now at this point, if you were doing mashed potatoes, you're done. I'm going to thicken it slightly. My grandmother never thickened hers. I'm going to thicken it just a little bit. We got our little slurry here, and I'm going to add it in gingerly. That was at a nice boil before I stirred it, so. But it takes a few minutes for the cornstarch to start to thicken it. A little bit more. All right, I'm gonna let that come back to a full boil before I add any more in. All right, guys, in between when we came back, I added a little bit more in, and that looks to be just about perfect for the way we like it. So it's not gravy, but it's not water. No, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean. All right, so we can shut our pot off, and like I said, we've got our oven set to 375. Sorry, I keep forgetting all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna take it out with a slotted spoon at first, just because I want to get as much of our meat and peas in there before I put the more gravy in there. Oh, look at that. Oh, it smells so good. All right, so that this video doesn't end up being 2 hours long, we'll come back once I get this all in there. All right, that did all get in our pot. I wasn't quite sure if I'd be able to get it all into that pan. All right, so we got our dumplings. Now, of course, you can do this whatever is easiest for you. I've run out of spoons. You can, probably buy, I'd say maybe a tablespoonful or so. All right, and drop it right on the top. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it that way. That seems pretty. That's how Gina did it with a spoon. And, they can go pretty close together. Maybe just a little slightly less than touching. Oop. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever made this dumpling. And I hope they don't all sink to the bottom. All right, I'm going to get this filled up, and I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, so again, if my pan was a little shallower and bigger, I think they would float a little bit more like Gina's did. But anyway, we're gonna put this into a 375-degree oven, middle rack, for about 45 minutes. Or until they're golden brown and delicious. I'm going to put a a cookie sheet underneath that. I forgot to put it in there. If I were you, I would too, because it looks like it could bubble over. All right. We'll see you when our dumplings are done. Okay, guys, our beef and peas with dumplings is done. Now, I think it's going to taste delicious. My dumplings don't look quite as good as Gina's, but that doesn't surprise me because I'm sure she's a much better cook than I am, and it's the first time I've made it. But I think it's more so because I don't have a shallow and wide enough pan, which I am going to correct tomorrow. But I think it's going to be delicious, so the next time we see you, we'll be having supper. See you in a little bit. Let's start out with a little toast of our vino. Thank you, hon. Yummy. All right. So, let's dig in.
Oh, it smells so delicious.
Yeah, I'm going to try these dumplings. Because I think they taste better than they look. Let's say.
Dumplings are good.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's delicious. It's it's a little. How'd you describe it? It's delicious. It's very good.
Yeah, meat nice and tender.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did use a little. I used the chuck roast cube instead of the regular stew meat, so it was a little more tender and by nature anyway. So
that is delicious.
Thank you. All right. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed watching us make dinner today. I hope you try it. If you do, let us know. Say hello. That's all I got to say.
Please like and subscribe and check out cherryhillhomecooking.com. See you in the next video.
Ciao.
Bye.
That's delicious.
It is.